You're listening to the Cryptid Creatures Podcast with Todd and Brian. If you've had an encounter and want to be on the show, email us at info@cryptidcreatures.co or leave a message at 888-5-DOG-MAN.
I kept seeing this huge silhouette. In fact, I thought it was my neighbor. My neighbor was like 6'6". I'm 6'4". It was behind that bush, and it would step over and watching, I guess, these two guys work on the car, and then it would step back behind the bush. What did I just see? And then it finally dawned on me, I'm convinced I just saw that Bigfoot.
This is the Cryptid Creatures Podcast. I am Brian, and with me, as always, right over there is my co-host Todd. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Great. If I can get rid of this damn head cold, that'd be even better.
Yeah, you sound a little stuffy again. That's all right.
Yeah, a little stuffy.
We'll
it always happens this time of year.
Yeah. You still sound fine to me. So
thanks.
Yeah. Hey, did you see that text message I sent you about the new Bigfoot documentary coming out in a month or so?
I did.
Mm-hmm.
I did see it, but I didn't have time to watch it yet, but I'm going to.
You should watch it.
I'll watch it tonight.
It's going to be cool. And for the listeners out there, it's called, bear with me here, it's called A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. Weird name, but when you watch the clip, maybe we'll put it out there on our group page on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
So people can go check it out, and then we'll try to post when it actually releases, because, man, as soon as that thing comes out, I'm going to watch it.
Maybe I will throw that out there on YouTube.
Yeah, it's really well put together, it seems. Ron Moorhead's on it.
Okay.
And Todd Neese. Todd Neese is in it, too.
Awesome.
So two guys that
were both on the show?
Yep. Yeah. It looks really cool, so be sure to check it out. And listeners, be sure to check it out. If you go on YouTube and YouTube that, A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed, you should be able to catch the clip in there and watch it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I will.
Good stuff.
And I'm sure everybody else will, too.
But anyway, our guest tonight, we're bringing back Andrea from It's a Bigfoot. Back in the day when we talked to her. Mm-hmm. This time she's going to bring Dan on, her husband, and he's going to tell his stories and his encounter. And
yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait to hear it.
So let's bring him on and not waste any more time. What do you say?
Yeah, let's get him.
Okay. Thank you again for coming back on and talking to us tonight.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Good to have you back.
This is Dan.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
So what's going on? You guys are still down there in Southern Illinois, is that right?
Yes.
Dan, were you wanting to talk about your encounters and things that you've experienced down there in Southern Illinois?
Normally over the wintertime, not a whole lot happens around here because there's no cover. You know, the leaves have gone off, and it seems like everybody and their neighbor has to leave their porch lights on. You know, they move out in the country, and it's like, oh, let's make it the city now. You know, right. So anyway, that's why things don't happen a lot during the wintertime, because there's no cover and there's too much light.
So, Dan, take us back to the first time you had an experience or encounter down there with this. You guys having a Bigfoot family or something going on down there, you think? Or what is it?
We think it was. We think it was a family of 5. That was back in when? 2017?
Yeah, it started in the spring of 2017. That we knew they were here.
Yeah.
But they were here before that, we found out.
Yeah, we're pretty sure they've probably been around here longer than I have.
Wow. Generational. Nice.
I think it probably is.
When's the last time you've had any kind of encounter or experience with these creatures?
I'd say 3 weeks ago. You know, we've got a little tray off the handrail of the back deck down by the ground, and I keep little things in there. And probably late last fall, a couple little items disappeared, and I looked everywhere for them. Couldn't find them, and it was 3 weeks ago. They were both one item was directly on the boardwalk below the tray, and the other was underneath the steps going up to the deck. And I had looked both of those places when they disappeared, and finally they came back. So that was the last thing that happened. But like I said, that's been about 3 weeks ago. I actually did a video of it, but I haven't posted it yet.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, we know they did some things last year. Dan built a new deck out front for us to sit on and have barbecue, and they started fooling around with the stuff on the deck there. They put some rocks in my flower pot and moved some stuff around here and there. But they don't do, the young guy, the one that was interacting a lot, he doesn't do that anymore. So I think he's just grown up.
Yeah, I think he grew up and found a sweetie and moved away, personally. That's what I think.
We just got bored to him.
Either that or we just got old hat, It's like, well, they're no fun.
Yeah, us old fogies, they've moved on to a young family with kids or something.
Who knows?
Maybe.
It could be.
But they still visit us, so they remember us. I want Dan to tell the interesting things. See, I know I told you guys the things he told me and then the things that happened to me, but I want him to tell you himself the experiences he's had. The time he actually saw the one. Tell him about that. Yeah.
I can do that, but before we get into that, let me just give you a background of how I got involved with this. This was back in 2017. Andrea had been watching videos on the internet of Bigfoot for, a year? Maybe 2 years? 6 months?
Yeah, about.
And she'd just say, oh, you got to see this. You have to watch this. You have to watch that. And I would just poo-poo it and just laugh at her and, say, oh, they're not real. And finally, she suggested I watch this one guy out of Utah, I think it was. Rio? Was it Utah?
Colorado or Utah? Yeah, Colorado, I think.
No, it was Utah.
Oh, Rio, yeah, Utah.
And he did a deal called Project Go and See. And he was challenging people just to go out in the woods and look. And he had done a video in western Kentucky, which is like 50 miles from us. And he was showing what he thought were structures in the hardwood forest down there. And I watched that, and it kind of piqued my curiosity. So I went in and actually jokingly told Andrea, I'm going to go to the woods and look for Bigfoot, And so I did, and I was gone, maybe an hour?
About a couple of hours, actually.
Yeah, and came back and got my camera because I found some things that I couldn't explain. Just some interesting things in the woods. That's what got me started. I started just to kind of spite Andrea, but
he was mad at me because I kept mentioning.
I wasn't mad at you, but I just kept poo-pooing her and then laughing at her, and then it turned around on me. It's like, oh well, I guess she's right after all.
Yeah, the day he came home from the woods, and I looked at, I said, did you find anything? The look on his face just told it all. I just said, no, you didn't. He said, yeah, I did.
Wow.
Well, that's how we found out they were here.
What did you find, Dan?
I just found some, I'll call them structures, things that I really just couldn't explain. I mean, one was, it was a large tree, I would guess 1.5 feet in diameter at the base, that the root ball was all the way out of the ground, and it was perched on top of another tree about its diameter that had been broken off about 10 feet above the ground, and it was perfectly rested up there. The branches of that tree was on the ground on one side, and the root ball was all the way out of the ground on the other side. And I was like, what are the chances of that happening? I guess it, once in a million maybe. And then I found something else, maybe 0.5 mile away, that kind of blew my mind. It was just almost like artwork of a fallen down tree and strips of bark and stuff. So that's what piqued my curiosity about it, and so I just started going out looking for stuff and just filming what I just thought looked impossible naturally to happen, or to do. And so that's what I first started doing. And then we started noticing things going on around the house, things being moved or sticks piled somewhere, it's like, what is this? So one night I dropped a microphone out of the window at about 9:00 and just let it record for an hour, wasn't it?
Yeah, about an hour.
Yeah, and I got like 5 seconds of an audio. Sounds like this deep, gruff-sounding voice saying Domas or Tomas or something like that. Anyway, that's what really made us think, okay, there's something's coming around the house, So I would just start, I don't know, I think I wrote my name with sticks, just laid some sticks out that said Dan, and those sticks would be manipulated the next day. Coons could knock it over, but the way they were manipulated, I don't think it was coons. And the same thing has happened in the little gift tray. I'll spell my name or do something, and then this little twigs will be manipulated in a different pattern. If it was a coon or a squirrel or something, they would just be all helter-skelter, jumbled up.
Yeah, when after he found those things out in the woods, we started looking around our yard too, and we found a few little things out there, and we found a hidey hole place where we think they were sitting out behind a rose bush, watching the house.
Yeah, watching the Dan and Andrea show.
Well, why not?
Yeah,
you guys must be more interesting than you think.
Yeah,
maybe, I don't know.
Well, tell them what happened to the structures after you started going out there filming them a lot.
Yeah, after about the 5th time of revisiting these structures, I went back one time and they were gone. They were torn down. And I also noticed every time I would go back to a certain place in the woods, which is, just an eighth of a mile away, if I went out there during the day, something would go on at night here. It's almost like tit for tat, So anyway, that's just what I noticed.
Yeah, it'd be like you visit my home, I'm going to visit your home.
Well, that's kind of what we thought,
Yeah.
And before either one of us really even started thinking about Bigfoot, it was the winter before. We've had chickens. We don't have them now, but at that point, I had, I think, 21 chickens, and I always count them before I lock them up at night. They'll put themselves to bed, but I always count them, make sure there wasn't any strays somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I had 21 chickens. And when I went out the next morning to feed them, I counted them again, and 3 were missing. The door was locked. There was no feathers, no sign of struggle, but 3 chickens had just disappeared overnight, quietly, like no blood, no nothing.
Yeah, and those locks, there was 2 of them that no animal could work. You had to have hands. Yeah. And the thing was locked back. Yeah. And the chickens were gone. And we thought, a neighbor was taking our chickens. What neighbor takes chickens?
I thought maybe a homeless person was hungry or something, let them have it. I don't care, But once we realized that it was probably Bigfoot coming around the house months later, then we kind of put 2 and 2 together, thinking, that was dead of winter time. I bet it was them came in and took those chickens. Because you can take a chicken off the roost at night, and they won't even squawk. If there's no light or anything. They may make a little noise, but not much. And so anyway, we got the bright idea to, later on, we kind of figured we had a family of 5 around here. 2 adults and 3, 1 juvenile. We figured a toddler and probably a infant.
Tell them how you figured that out.
Well, that was later. But
that's when you figured
But anyway, so we were thinking, okay, a family of 5. So I had a 1-gallon ice cream pail, And I'd put 5, I don't remember if they were apples or peaches. I'd put that in there and then hang it up from a tree limb down in the woods lot behind her house, high enough where deer couldn't get it and coons couldn't get to it. And I did that for 3 or 4 nights and nothing happened. And Andrea says, I've got this theory, that they have this idea of a lot and a little. If there's a lot of stuff, I'll take a little and they'll never notice it. So she said, why don't you try filling that ice cream container all the way up with apples and see if any disappear. Apples or peaches, like I said, I don't remember.
Apples first.
I think it was apples. So I filled as many as I could in that thing and hung it up. I can remember the number. I put 19 in there. And I went out the next morning and 5 were gone. Rest of them were there, but 5 apples were gone. And that was the amount I was trying to get them to take it. So I think Andrea's theory of their idea of a lot and a little, I think there's something to that.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Well, yeah. I mean, if there's 30 chickens and I take 3, they'll never miss that.
Right.
But I really believe that they are very subtle, and that's people have to be looking for some of the things they do. I mean, some of the things they do are really spectacular.
And if you're not looking for them, you'll never notice it.
Yeah, most of the time. On the family of 5, I just want to tell you briefly how we figured that out. That at first we knew we had 1 because he started coming out to the car and leaving his handprints on our car and fingerprints. So we knew we had 1 at least. And then the night that Dan made the recording audio we were telling you about, and he didn't even explain about the audio, what it was. It was all of a sudden you hear a big snap, and then you hear a whoo, and then you hear a big gruff voice saying, Tomas. So we got that recording, and we just could not believe it, and we think the way it sounded is that a young one had stepped on, or one of them had stepped on a piece of plastic. And the reason we know is because he went out and found the plastic bird feeder that was down there and buried half in the leaves. And he realized that probably that's what the thing stepped on. But anyway, we figured, okay, there's 2 of them now. We know that one of them stepped on the plastic and said, ooh, and the other one said, Tomas. So, okay, now we've got 2, right? Okay, so then Dan needs to tell you about how we found out about the other 3. And so go ahead and tell them that. It won't be in order, but go ahead.
All this is on our Shawnee Sasquatch site on YouTube, on the videos. I explained. But anyway, the way I figured, I was back in the woods. There was a certain place back there where I kind of figured out that's where they were hanging out at. And anyway, I walked up there one time just to look, and I get, I don't know, maybe a couple 100 feet away from where I figured they stayed. And I hear this, it sounds like a kitten mewing, really strange. And I'm like, okay, well, why is there a kitten mewing back here in all this undergrowth? And that went on about 15 seconds, and then it stopped. And just a few seconds later, it sounded like a little child whimpering, kind of like, like that, And I'm like, okay, that's even weirder, is there a little kid out here with a little kitten or something out here in the brambles? And that stopped all of a sudden. And just a few seconds later, from the very same place, I hear this whistle. So I whistled back. And a few seconds after that, off to my right, about 100, 150 feet, in another part of the thicket back in there, I hear. So I whistled it. A few seconds pass, and off to my left and kind of in front of me, about the same distance, I hear this low whistle. I'll tell you, the hair stood up on the back of my neck right there. It's like, all right, I'm halfway surrounded here. So I just said, okay. So we kind of figured the 3 whistles. The first whistle was probably Mama. The second one was probably the juvenile. The third deep one was probably Papa. And we kind of figured that child whimpering was a toddler and the kitten mewing might have been a little baby. So we kind of figured that's how we kind of came up with the family of 5.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we knew they had babies because after that, it was after that, I think, yeah. After that, we found that they had come up to the tray where there was a baby toy, a little toy on there that when you squeezed it, it would light up, a little rubber toy, small.
Mm-hmm.
And it had like a little head on it,
It was like a little dragon.
It was like a little dragon or something. And when Dan went out there, you want to explain what you found out there?
Well, when I went out the next morning, the tray had been disturbed, and that little dragon toy was on the ground, and I picked it up and by the head, and it was real sticky. And I looked at it, and it had holes bitten in it. And so we kind of figured, and the little light inside was, it was some kind of ball or something that if you knocked this thing or shook it real hard, it would flash red and yellow, LED lights. We kind of figured this is what we think, is possibly the family came up and they were letting the baby play with that thing, and it probably put it in his mouth, bit down on it,
and it lit up.
And possibly he might have even got choked on it, And so probably mama or daddy grabbed it out of his mouth and threw it on the ground. So the reason the head was sticky is either they have a very caustic saliva, or if it was the infant that got choked on it, he might have vomited on it or something, and that kind of melted the head or made it soft or something.
Yeah,
like
that thing deteriorated. We had to throw it out.
Yeah.
Whatever it was so strong
that
melted. Rubber melted.
Yeah, it kind of deformed it a little
and that's
bit.
No joke. And I got so mad at Dan because he threw it out.
Oh, it was gross.
But that was some, toy.
It could have been DNA. That was DNA. You could have saved that.
It could have been. We found
the hairs on it. We found some hairs on it,
another time we found, and maybe that was the same. Yeah, it was the same time, because we had a little red pullback car that we've got Chevy Blazer, red. Mm-hmm. And so I found this, and that's where the handprints always showed up on the windows and stuff. So we found this little toy car that looked just like that Blazer, so we set it in that tray. But anyway, that same day I was kind of looking at that, and the same day of the little dinosaur thing had been chewed, there was hairs on that. There was a little hair in the tray and one on that car. So I've got those. I put them in some, I seal them in some tape, some clear packing tape.
We just weren't into testing DNA and all that, because I knew, I had read what happens when people get DNA tested and stuff, how that turns out. And the hairs are very unusual because they're see-through. They're not like human hairs. You can, if you have them on a surface, whatever the surface is underneath is what the hair shows. They're see-through.
They're
very interesting.
Yeah, it's almost like they're translucent and they absorb or refract the surrounding. Because where it was this one hair, and these hairs aren't that long; they may be a 1/2 to 3/4 inch long. Mm-hmm. But where it was laying across the wood of the tray, where the wood grain would be light, the hair would be light. Where the wood grain would be dark, the hair would be dark. And so Andrea and I have kind of, just from that, extrapolated that a possibility that they're so hard to see and they hide so easily is that their hair it may be translucent enough to
absorbs the colors,
to refract the surrounding colors,
at least a layer of it.
Exactly. And the 2 hairs we got were real kinky. They weren't squirrel hair, they weren't raccoon hair, they were kind of a blondish red or a real light brownish blonde.
Wasn't one hair sticking on that sticky stuff on the dragon's head?
No, one was on the
one was
on the spare tire of the little toy car, and another was on. Actually, it stuck onto a little splinter that was on the tray.
Yeah, it's been so long ago.
Yeah, like I said, all these videos. I did a video of that one too. It's on that YouTube side of Shawnee Sasquatch.
Did any of you guys look at that Shawnee Sasquatch that Dan has, the YouTube?
Yeah, we checked it out after, Andrea, we had you
After we
on
talked
a
to
while
you,
back.
yeah.
Yep, and
Yeah.
we checked it out. I'm going to check it out again, though. I want to see that.
Yeah, to see
Yeah,
that
me
what
too.
we're talking about, you have to go back to the very beginning because, Dan put a lot of stuff. He loves the twig games and that stuff,
Mhm.
But
The thing about the handprints on the car, everyone I've ever seen on the car or the van is always left-handed. So I don't know if that particular Sasquatch is left-handed, or somebody made a comment one time on one of my videos that said among the larger primates, left-handedness seems to be dominant. I didn't know that, and I've never really bothered to look it up, but I just found that kind of interesting. It's always left-handed. I went out one winter. I mean, this was winter time. And on the back of my van was this large left handprint on the glass, and down about the 4 o'clock position, about a foot away, was this little bitty left handprint. I'm like, really? And it had been cold that night. I'm like, man, if this is neighbors pranking us, then they're bringing their little bitty kids out in the cold of winter and having them to touch on the back of the window just to do a prank. And I'm like, that's not a neighbor. It's not a neighbor doing that.
yeah, those fingerprints were interesting because it looks like they have kind of swirls like ours, but I don't think they're as pronounced swirly. But on the tips of the fingers, you can see these little, I call them tubercles. They're little bumps on the fingertips. And so we were thinking, what are those? Are they for better gripping, or are they little oil glands? We don't know what they are. But, their handprints, it's so greasy. There's just something about their hands that have this substance, oiliness to them. And tell them about the handprints stuck on the car. I'll let Dan tell you that.
What do you mean?
How we couldn't wash them away. They stuck.
Yeah, they didn't wash off real easy. I don't even think Windex totally took them off the glass. It would, but off the finish of the paint, you could wash it all day long and they'd still be there. If you misted it with water, you'd still see them. It's really strange. Wow. Yeah.
Like it melted the paint or something.
Well, I don't think it melted the paint. I think the oil was it's a different kind of oil. With her talking about the little bumps, tubercles or whatever on the fingerprints. Now, they could be, like she said, possibly oil glands. Either that or they manipulate wood so much that could be scars from splinters and things like that. Who knows?
They were all the same size, and
True.
They all had a little dot in the center of them. Am I right on that?
I think so.
Yeah, they were all the same size, and they had a little dot kind of in the center. You can see.
Snow White Bigfoot has a couple pictures of handprints around her place, and they look exactly the same.
Yeah, do you know who Snow White is? Snow White
No.
Bigfoot. You guys need to go on her site. She's had them longer than we have, and she has experience. She lives out on a farm out in the middle of nowhere.
I think she's in Ohio.
Ohio, and so
Northeast Ohio.
Not sure.
I don't know where she lives exactly, but she has this beautiful farm, and she discovered them a couple of years before we did. And so she's had these visitors, and they bring her stuff, and they take it away, and they've even gone in her garage and borrowed her husband's tools and brought them back. And yeah, look at Snow White. I mean, so we've talked to her a few times about, and some of the same things that goes on with us is going on with her too.
Yeah, we'll look her up and get a hold of her and talk to her.
Yeah, I think you'd probably be really interested in talking with her.
Yeah, she has much more interesting stuff than we do.
There's another guy, Rick. I don't know his last name. I don't know if I've ever talked to him on the phone, but his side is Wood Booger Farm. He's down in eastern Kentucky, I think. But I'm pretty sure he and Snow White have actually met and talked.
Yeah, they did.
I don't know if Rick is doing a whole lot anymore with it.
Well, he can't help it because they're at his house.
They throw rocks at his house and stuff. They eat his dog food. Stuff like that.
Put his cat in the garbage can
Yeah.
one time.
Yeah. Rick's comment was, who would want to throw away a perfectly good cat?
It's lucky they didn't eat it.
No. They didn't eat it.
If it's annoying them, they probably just pick it up and throw it away.
That's what I'm thinking. He's got a little stump or something up in the woods where he leaves gifts and stuff. And one day he went up there checking, and there was a dead ground squirrel there. He's like, look at that. They gifted me a dead ground squirrel. How cool is that?
Yeah, well, it's better than a dead rat, dead mouse that people get.
In fact, I think he found a cave up in there. He went in there, and there was
stories. I wanted to tell him about the gun and the raccoon. Tell him that. This is really a good one. This is one we experienced together. Actually.
Yeah, this is when we had chickens, and also after I dropped that mic out the window, I got thinking, how can I listen to outside? And so I got online for like spy transmitters, and there's this guy in the UK that sells them, and he also sells kits. They're not quite the size of a matchbox, small matchbox, but they transmit on FM about 200 feet and run on 2 AA batteries, and you can listen to them over the FM radio. So I bought one of his kits, built it, and then bought a couple little pocket radios, and we'd lay at night with earphones on. I'd set the microphone in the window and close the window behind it. And
we could hear them coming up.
We could hear them coming up, walking. I mean, it sounds like, bipedal footsteps coming up, and they'd stop, and then you'd hear twigs snapping, like snap, snap, snap. Not like walking snapping, but like somebody's just snapping twigs, And anyway, we had our chickens at that time, and I don't remember what time of night it was. I hadn't fallen asleep yet. So
it was about 9 o'clock.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So I hear the chickens just pitching a fit. And I thought, okay, there's something in the chicken house. So I get up, go out there, and there's a raccoon that got in the chicken house. And so I chased it out. And I go back to bed, and about 30 minutes later, I hear it again. So I get up, I grab my rifle, and I flashlight and walk out there. And I didn't turn the flashlight on and just walk around the back of the house. And I think about the time I got almost to where our gift tray is, which is kind of close to the chicken house, I hear this. Whoo.
No, that was another time.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, he wasn't going out to the chicken house when he heard that. He's getting 2 stories mixed up. These 2 things mixed up.
I don't think so, sweetheart.
Yeah, I'll tell it. He, because I had it too. He went out there. He says, I'm going out there. There's something in the chicken house. He grabs his gun, and I didn't want him to really kill it. So I was running to the back door. I heard the gun go off, and something flew by on the bottom of the deck, just went vroom. And I knew that I knew what it was. Because it was big. Whatever, it wasn't a raccoon running. It was big, and it ran behind a big tree. And so I knew he was still out there. And so I said, Dad's not going to hurt you with a gun. Because I knew he was thinking, you heard the shot. But Dan heard it over the microphone. Okay, now you tell what you heard over the microphone.
Anyway, same story. I went out there, and I hear this whoop, and it runs off, just like Andrea says, and it runs off a certain distance and just stops dead.
Behind the tree.
And so I turn on the flashlight, and the raccoon is on top of the chicken house. And so I shoot the raccoon, and he falls on the chicken house. I mean, he falls down on the roof. So for good measure, I just shoot him again.
Oh, this is terrible.
And then the third time,
people are going to love this.
The third time I shoot him, just to make sure, right where these footprints had run off or footsteps had stopped, I hear this. What was it? It was kind of like, ugh, and that's when Andrea says, he's not going to shoot you as the raccoons are eating the chickens,
Yeah, I told
And
him
so
he had to kill
I
him.
let the raccoon lay on top of the chicken house because I wasn't going to get the ladder out at 9:30 at night, crawl up on top there, and get a dead raccoon down. So the next morning, I go outside to get the raccoon off the top of the chicken house, and it's gone. I know I killed it, but it's gone. I think whatever we chased off, which I think was the Bigfoot, I think it probably climbed in there. Well, I'm not letting that go to waste.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I was running to the back door. I startled him, too, because I was running to the back door, flung the back door open, turned the light on at the same time.
That may have been why.
He wasn't used to us coming out or turning the light on. We never did that, you know. So I think both the gunshot and me, it happened kind of simultaneously. And I was screaming at Dan, don't kill.
I wasn't going to shoot at
And all I know is something big. You know, I was on the deck, and it stands about 5 feet off the ground.
I've experienced that very fast running scenario like that night, I think 3 other times. First time, I'd gone out before light and was standing out in front of the house, and I heard something thump the back of the car. So I started walking toward the car, and all of a sudden I just hear this, it's just a heavy footfalls, and it must have covered 100 feet in 3 seconds. I never saw anything. I'm like, what the heck was that? And then it was about 2 weeks later, I was down in the woods refilming something, and same thing happened. Something ran out of this little bunch of trees into a super thick, brushy bramble that I dove in there, but it was so brambly, it was slow going. But I turned around quick enough to see the branches on some of the bushes still waving, but I never saw what it was. So I went back the next day and looked at that little copse of trees this thing had run out of, which was a small stand of small sycamores. And about 6 feet up, one of those sycamore trees was just broken right over. And it was like, okay. You know, and then another time was I was about a mile from the house across the highway. I was going to head on down to some sloughs down there and get ready to go cross a fence into some woods, and there was a large thicket there. Same thing happened. Heavy footfalls, runs off. It was summertime. Good cover of leaves. It runs off maybe just 50, 60 feet and just stops. And so I'm like, hello? And so I started taking a step in there, and there's just this huge stick snap. I mean, it wasn't just some twig. It was like crack. And I stopped, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going in there.
Oh, tell about how you saw in that time, huh? Dan saw one before I did.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about it.
This was, I think, in October of probably 2000. It could have been 2017. It might have been 18.
It was 18.
I think it was 18. I had gone to bed. I had the microphone set up in the window in back and was laying in bed. I kept hearing this banging and hammering. I was like, what is that? You know, so I get up, and I knew one of my neighbors had been having car trouble, and I look out our south window. I didn't turn any lights on or anything, and my neighbors is out there working on his car in the driveway. And he had his door to his house open, and I kept seeing this huge silhouette. In fact, I thought it was my neighbor. My neighbor was like 6'6". I'm 6'4". He's like 6'6" and 320 pounds, 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what's Christian did? I had this nice bush out in the yard. I still have it, of course. But it was behind that bush toward my side, and it would step, and my neighbor had his door open, so it would get silhouetted against his open door. You could see it pass across that light there. But what this thing was doing, it was stepping over and watching, I guess, these two guys work on the car. and then it would stack back behind the bush. It did that about 3 or 4 times, and I kept thinking, why is Christian behind my bush watching his cousin working on his car? Because I had the radio on, and I had the microphone on, and I had the earphones on. And I'm sitting there, and my mind is just kind of reeling. I couldn't figure this out. And I mean, I wasn't even thinking about Bigfoot at the time. And then all of a sudden, this silhouette, whatever it was, just quickly walks into my woods lot.
After the guys started coming back to the house, I think.
And then one of the guys went in the house. And I'm like, well, that's weird. And, there's whatever the silhouette was, didn't have a flashlight. And it was after dark. It was in October. The leaves were about half off that bush out there. That's why I could see it. And then about 45 seconds later, the other guy goes in the house. And then I really was like, what did I just see? I hear all this time, I thought it was Christian. And then it finally dawned on me, I'm convinced I just saw that Bigfoot. It was a silhouette.
It was big. Tell them about the shape of it. You were telling me the shape of the head.
You've probably seen a lot of the Bigfoot videos. Big barrel chest and everything. That's what it looked like. And when it walked, just a few steps I could see it. It didn't walk like a human. We'd do a stride. This thing would pick like his feet up, and then move it forward and step down, kind of like you see on some of the Bigfoot videos. I personally don't watch Bigfoot videos, and there's a reason for that. I don't want to be swayed by other people's opinions and stuff. I want to view and make my own opinions, and then later on I may watch somebody's video. And I saw a video where when we were talking about the possibility of the hair being a natural invisibility cloak or whatever, helps them hide or blend in. This other guy had found some hair, and he had said that. I mean, this was after the fact, but that I had thought about that he said, I'm wondering if their hair somehow refracts the light around and helps them blend in the background. I'm like, all right, there you go, And I really think there's something to that. But that's my that's the only time I'm pretty sure I saw it.
Oh, I know he did.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
The reason I know he did is because I can't even walk down where this creature went down, walking down, like he said, at the middle of the night.
Well,
I can't even walk there in the daytime.
Yeah, I mean,
it's on the side of a gully. So you take your life in your hands to walk down there without a flashlight.
Well, there's deadfall down there. Smaller deadfall. It can be thick. But yeah, I wouldn't want to walk through there without a flashlight because I'd fall on my face within the first 10 steps.
You didn't hear him fall on his face, did you?
No, and he didn't run either. I just hear this bipedal walking, and then it stopped. Andrea and I are both convinced that they do things subtly, and it's almost like counting coup or something. It's like, look, we were here and you didn't even know it, and they'll leave their little calling card or something. That's kind of what we think.
Yeah, they were really shocked when we knew that they were here. I'm
think
sure
it's frustrating
because the night the night that Dan came back and he said that the structures were broken down. That's the night they came. They were loud. They were stamping on our boardwalk. I think they were mad because he'd come back out there,
I don't know what it was.
That was the night they were stamping on our boardwalk. I mean, we have a boardwalk out back, and to walk on that hillside there. And I swear, I never heard anything like that. Stamping and breaking sticks.
Yeah, I think they have at least the ones around here. I think this because I've heard it, so I just assume, I extrapolate. Just listening over that transmitter microphone we have, I've heard bipedal footsteps come up, and you'll hear like a stick snapping code.
Mm-hmm. Whistle.
Snap, 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 and then you'll hear 3 or 4 bipedal footsteps, going away.
And sometimes whistles.
Or I've actually heard bipedal footsteps come up, and then you'll hear this.
Yeah,
this like this whistle code, and then you hear more than one set of bipedal footsteps going away through the leaves. So I think, they're what would you call them? Guerrilla warfare. They're whatever that they have. They use natural sounds to communicate. Hey, I'm coming up here. This is what we need to do. We also are convinced they use animal sounds, owls.
Oh, I know they use
dogs.
Coyotes,
things like that. I think they use that to communicate.
Especially the owls.
Especially the owls. We laugh about the 300-pound owls.
600-pound owls. Oh, I wanted to tell you one thing about the footsteps is that another reason we know that there's babies, there's young ones, is because every once in a while you'd hear like a little toddler running through the leaves. Dip, 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 like a little kid running back and forth, So we have heard those little foot sounds too. Footsteps.
That's all just amazing stuff. I don't know where to begin. How big were the handprints on the vehicles?
Well, Dan's got big hands. He's a big guy, 6'4", and they were a little bigger than Dan's.
They were a little bit bigger than mine, and the thumb is set lower. I could get my fingers to line up with their spread, but I could not get the thumb to line up.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then there was a baby print one time too.
Yeah,
a little hand.
I've seen a documentary where the same thing happened, where people found handprints on their vehicles, and they said the same things you guys did. They couldn't get it completely off, clean it off.
Really?
The residue would stay on there. And they also mentioned seeing the little suction cups. They talked about they thought they were for gripping.
That's kind of what we thought too, or they may be oil glands, because I know they manipulate wood a lot. I mean, I've seen you guys have seen punky wood, so punky you can take it and just kind of fluff it off. And right behind the house, I've seen little piles of it, look like little anthills of this punky wood. Like you take it in your hand and take your other hand and twist it to sharpen it like you're sharpening a pencil, twist it back and forth and leave this little pile of punky wood, and the twisted stick would be to the side. And that's why I told Andrea, I said, yeah, we were visited last night. They came and had their punky wood popcorn watching the Dan and Andrea show, because it would be right out back.
You guys definitely have a lot of activity going on, and there's no reason for you to not think that there's not Bigfoots going around in your property.
Oh, no, there's no doubt in my mind. And here you've got two witnesses. I mean, you guys have sat here and listened. And
things that you guys have said along the way, and I'm sure Brian can attest to this too, sounds so familiar to me, and we've heard it before in other instances around. What we've talked.
Yeah, you guys would be good to know that listening to so many people that. The things that are common to,
See, that's
common things.
I mean, I think what you guys are doing, you're interviewing a lot of people. I think that's a good part of research too, because like what you're saying, you hear it from so many different other people across the board. You hear it over and over. And so these are just common things that I guess these Sasquatch do.
Dan, have you ever thought about putting cameras out or game cameras out?
I put a game camera out one time and all activity stopped.
Tell them about the security camera.
Well, but see, most game cameras has, what is it, a 840 nanometer light. It's red. Humans can see it, and humans can't see in the dark. Bigfoot can see in the dark. I think they have nocturnal vision, just like any other nighttime animal. And so if we can see a red lights when those infrared lights go off, I know they can. But they have a 920 or 940 nanometer, which is totally invisible to humans. And it's not as bright. It doesn't shine as far. So I put a trail cam up with the red lights on it one time. All activity stopped and didn't start up again until 2 weeks after I took that camera down. And I think Bigfoot are smart. I think they set at a distance and they watch a place and they get to know habits of people. Yeah. That's just what Andrea and I have thought of over these past few years. And so, if they're sitting and watching and there's a trail camera up, we have raccoons that come up and possums and other things that come up, and they'll trip that camera. And a Bigfoot can see, okay, that red light came on. There's something there. So they're going to skirt that, and I think they know what it is.
Well, we had a security light out in front. So when we knew that security camera. And when we knew they were coming out front and leaving handprints on the car, we unplugged it because we knew they didn't like it. And if they thought it was on, we thought, well, they won't come. And we wanted them to come out front to leave the handprints, and maybe we could see them or something sometime. But anyway, a few months after Dan had unplugged it, it was just hanging there, unplugged.
Well, I wound the cable up and hung it on a nail or something on the side of the house. Yeah. Nice and neat, so it was coiled up, hanging there.
Anyways, he went out there one day and he noticed it was I guess it was off the hook, and it was hanging down, I guess.
Well, I was going to reroute the wires.
Oh.
And so I uncoiled it, and both business ends of the cord I'm going to say they were bit off. They were either bit or pulled off. One business end is where the video feed plugs in. The other is the power feed. And it's only 12 volts. But both of those ends were gone off that cord.
Were they metal?
Yes.
Shiny metal?
Yes. But I found one, I think it was I found the video end. It's special. It's metal and, I don't know, diameter of an ink pen or something, maybe 2.5 inches long. It was on the ground below where the cable was, but it was a few months later before I found the power end. It was down in the woods. It had been thrown down in the woods. I was down in the woods. I've got some wild plants down there, wildflowers and stuff. I was down there just messing around one day, and there that power cord end was. And I'm like, well, there you are. So whatever it was, just dropped the one part and flung the other in the woods. So I don't know if it was a Bigfoot did that or if the neighbor just thought, I don't like your camera pointed over
I don't
here.
think the neighbor likes wires.
Do I don't either.
Neighbor would slice it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The neighbor would slice it. Of course he would.
A lot of the things you guys are talking about can only have been done by one or two things, humans or Bigfoot. And
well, that's just it.
No human would do the things around your house that they were doing there's no benefit of it, for them to do that.
Well, somebody commented on one of my videos. They said, what makes you think that's a Bigfoot? That could totally be a neighbor or a person. I said, you're exactly right. It could be a neighbor, and I have not 100% ruled that out. And if we want to go that far, it could even be aliens. I said, but if it's a neighbor doing a practical joke, they've done it spring, summer, winter, and fall years. For 3 years.
5 years.
Well, when I wrote this, it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, when you
for 3 years. I said, that person needs to get the Oscar for the best running practical joke.
Yeah, no kidding.
You guys, no humans can go out and back and where they were
and walk out without falling down.
If you want me to send you a video of that place, we could certainly send you.
Well, the thing is, Andrea and I always wanted to set cameras up, but she's like, no, you'll chase them away. And I think her reasoning is really sound. I really do. Yeah. And so we made a pact that if we knew they were out there, we would never turn on the light. We would never go running and throwing windows up, and looking outside. We would never run outside. We would just calmly sit in the house and
listen to them
and not interact or anything. And we kind of believe it drove them crazy. It's like, why are they? Why
aren't they coming out?
Why? We'll throw rocks in the house. Why aren't they coming running out like everybody else does?
We did have. I've heard things hit the side of the house, but I always thought it was the kids with a BB gun over in the house over across the way. So I never did. Before the Bigfoot, we knew they were coming. Associate that with that, but but unless unless we're both going nuts. So, I mean, this stuff is it's really happened to us. It's the most amazing thing that ever happened to me in my life. And I don't know why it happened to us, but it did. And what can I say?
Andrea and I laugh. Right. We say that we're having the same hallucination together. If this isn't real, then we are hallucinating the same thing at the same time.
We're in bad trouble.
Yeah.
How long have you guys lived in the house you're in now?
24 years.
We got married in 1999, and so that's when we moved in here.
23 years.
And that's your family's property, Dan? Is that right?
It's our property. I grew up right next door, and that house is across the woods lot in back here of us. That's where I grew up. My grandfather moved down here, I think, in the 80s, late 70s, 80s, bought these two lots we have. When he died, my parents got him. And when my dad died, of course, my mom ended up with him. And then I moved back here back in, when was it, 97?
Yeah, about
needed a place to stay and bought these two lots off of my mom. And so we've had, and then Andrea and I got married in 99. I pulled a trailer on here, and before we got married, she moved in here, and you lived here, 6 months or so?
I can't remember.
And then we got married, then I moved in here. So anyway, we've been in here a long time.
But we didn't know about the Bigfoot until 17.
But putting two and two together, my mom would every now and then tell stories of like one or two hard bangs on the wall that faces the woods on her side. And nobody could ever figure it out. I remember as a kid running through the woods around here, one of my brothers would a couple times, hey, come look at this, and here's the small maple tree that I'm sure you guys are familiar with what a maple leaf looks like. Look at the Canadian flag.
Right.
But where the stem comes out, there's kind of a V notch there. And you could actually take two of those maple leaves and bend the limbs around and hook two of those leaves together, and they'll stay. Mm-hmm. And I remember my brother pointing those out in the woods behind the house that we used to play in when I was a kid. Well, when we realized these things were coming, I would find those same things in this woodlots of ours behind the house. I would undo them, and they'd be redone the next day.
Yeah,
they'd be hooked right back together.
And you have to do it with your hands. The wind will not do it. We never.
I would check it after a real windy day. You'd never find it. But it always happened at night, So I know or I'm convinced that what my brother showed us when we were kids, back in the early 60s and running around in these woods. That's why I'm convinced that these Bigfoot were here when I was a kid, and they were here before that. I think this is a generational, territorial, familial place around here that.
Yeah, a funny story about that too is that there was a thing going around about the little kids one time when they were having a barbecue over there. This is before I knew Dan. They were his nephews and nieces that they came out of the woods and said, "There's a monkey out there."
I asked.
I know you did, but I'm telling you, what the little kids said at the time is what they said, and maybe when they're adults, they don't want to admit to it, but they did say that there was a monkey out there in the woods. So, I mean, now they're adults and they're denying it. Maybe they've forgotten about it, But I've heard it. I heard his mom.
They just don't want to remember.
They don't want to because it's beyond their, I think that, we've told his relatives about this, and that was it. Yeah, they thought we were absolutely nuts, but they were very polite about it. But just lately, they've talked to us about it and said, "Yeah, we believe you that there are Bigfoots."
Well, I think what convinced them is, again, and you guys have probably seen it, the video I've got up on our site about the feather.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that one. A feather is there's a, I mean, it's a dove wing or tail feather. The thing's 3 to 4 inches long. And there's this unbroken piece of bark slipped up the shaft of that feather.
So
and
small.
it's like a piece of jewelry. And that bark is tight enough. I mean, it's not this big honking piece of bark. It's just barely big enough.
I'd say about what, a 16th of an inch wide, an eighth of an inch wide?
I'd say the center of it is maybe an eighth.
Yeah. It's very
But
tiny.
somehow, whoever did that or whatever did it was able to manipulate that feather without breaking it. It's got a slight crack in it, but it's not all the way through. And I think one of my older brothers, I think when we said this, I think he's like, okay, here goes Dan again, just crazy as a loon. And he was over one day, and I said, I got to show you something, Bruce. And I showed him that, and he's sitting there looking at it. He's going, what the hell? What the heck is that? All that? I guess that could have fallen down from, no, that couldn't have done that. He goes, I got to take a picture of that. And after that, he's a lot more open to it.
Well, what gets me is they had to hollow that little twig out.
They did.
How did they get that hollowed out so they could slip it over that shaft of the feather?
They used the shaft of the feather as a pick. I mean, here you think of these Sasquatch that's 6, 8, 7 feet, weighs 300 or 400 pounds, and they've got this little 3-inch dove feather manipulating a piece of bark off of a twig, small enough, and making it act like a cigar band and sliding it up the shaft of that thing. I mean, that just blows my mind. That's on his. When I saw that, it's like, man, that's like jewelry making, but using natural products. Yeah. It was really cool.
Incredible.
It's something else.
That is, and what's sad is, the feather's getting old and ratty looking, and we're going to lose it. All we'll have eventually is just photos of it. It's sad.
I did a close-up video of that twice and posted it on YouTube, and it stayed up for about 2 days, and then it just disappeared both times.
Why?
I have no idea. I could not figure that one out.
Yeah, that's odd.
The video that shows it in me picking it up in the tray, just talking about it, that's still on there.
Wow.
It's stealing it.
We're going to be sure to check out Shawnee Sasquatch, you guys, and we'll let our listeners know here, obviously, as they're listening to this podcast, to check it out, too.
Yeah, check it out.
And see all the videos and the stuff going on. And all the stuff that you guys are talking about is amazing. Definitely points towards something going on there. Other than human. So to speak. So, and again, we really appreciate you guys coming on and talking to us tonight.
Well, you're welcome. It was a lot of fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
You guys.
Dan's never talked about it. Anywhere. You're the first guys he's talked to. Guy.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
We appreciate that, Dan. Thank you.
Heck yeah.
All right, you're welcome.
We love hearing you guys' stories, and if something else goes on, get a hold of us and let us know what's happening over there.
Yeah, we will.
I will.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things we haven't told you, I'm sure. But
we're getting into springtime, so they should be.
Yeah, I'm hoping. One thing that I kind of sort of have noticed, it doesn't happen all the time, but if there's going to be activity around here, it seems like it always happens somewhere between last quarter of the moon and first quarter, but mainly between new moon and first quarter, because the moon's in the sky until midnight,
Mm-hmm.
So they don't like the light.
And also, especially summertime, because there's a lot of cover, the leaves are on the trees, and especially if it had rained like a day before, where the leaves aren't real crunchy, it seems like those combination of things is when most often something will happen around here.
You make sure you keep tracking that and document as much of that activity and anything that you can, Dan.
Well, this is all I can, I've just kind of been thinking about this over the past couple months, thinking, over the past few years, that seems to be, especially when things have calmed down and they do come back periodically, that seems to be the times that they come.
Gotcha.
Dark of the moon and non-crunchy leaves.
Yeah, they wait till after a rain, to come, so that where it's not quite, dried off. They don't want to leave footprints, but they don't want to walk in the dry leaves either.
Exactly. We've also noticed, listening with our earphones over that amplified microphone, is that there's a railroad track about 3 miles as the crow flies east of us. And we live, there's a blacktop road, just, I could throw a rock and almost hit it. But we've also noticed, listening, that sometimes when we'd hear those bipedal footsteps, I always say footprints. Mm-hmm. I guess it's kind of funny. Oh, listen, I hear footprints.
A lot of people do that.
I know they do. But a lot of times it's when a car is going by down on the blacktop, or a train is going by.
I've noticed that too.
That then you might hear rustling or bipedal footsteps in the leaves, and then it'll stop when the car gets by.
They use other sounds to hide their movements.
I think they use man's sounds and even wind.
Why not? Yeah,
and wind, to mask their movements.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just things we've kind of noticed over the past few years.
With that
Whether it's right or not, I don't know, but that's just what it seems like.
That microphone, we could hear way out in the woods, quite a way.
Oh, you'd hear things
probably further than we should have. But but we heard them out there when they first come up. You know how they'd approach. The dogs would start barking. We could hear them barking, and then the owls would start hooting, and then pretty soon we'd hear whistling. And like one would come up first, and then a few minutes later we'd hear whistling, and then another one would come up. So they wouldn't come. Usually there was two, I think. Don't you think?
I think so.
I think there was two.
I think the whistle was just to let the other person know, hey, I'm coming in here. Don't get freaked out. It's me.
The other one says, the one that's up here says, it's safe now. You can come up or something. But they used the whistling to communicate when they were one was coming up.
Right.
It's so interesting.
Well, you guys keep doing what you're doing and keep documenting anything that you can. And
all right.
Yeah, we're not investigators. We're just experiencers.
That's all right. Sometimes that's the best.
Well, it is.
We didn't want to get into that,
All right. Thank you.
We just wanted to let people know what was happening to us. That's all.
And like I said, if you guys have more, get a hold of us and let us know.
We will.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, you guys, take care and thanks again.
Nice talking to you guys.
You too.
Good night.
See you later. Bye-bye.
See ya.
That was really good, man.
Those two are always fun, man.
They are. The way they back and forth with each other and rigmarole, they're talking and whatnot.
But that was good. I like that.
I remember her telling some of his stories back when we talked to her, but him telling it really kind of sealed the deal. And
especially since he was like the skeptic,
right?
For the longest time.
Yep. He was the one that didn't believe, and I meant to ask her what made her start looking up Bigfoot stuff a year before that, and I never got a chance to, but something obviously.
I'm sure we'll talk to him again.
Yeah, probably. We appreciate the listens, everyone, and thanks again. Watch for our website coming soon. So
we do have a website, and it is in development, so we'll let you know.
Yep. It'll be cryptidcreatures.co.
That's right.
Right, so... Once again, my friend, thanks for hanging out with me.
Always fun.
All right. Until next time.
Yep. See ya.